Good evening, everybody. Group number 2, we're going to talk about fraud today. We're going to start with defining what fraud is. So it's really important that we need to know what is fraud. Probably most of us have a general idea of what fraud is. But in the broader sense, fraud is a deception made for a personal gain or to damage another individual or entity. The specific legal definition of fraud varies by jurisdiction, but the fact is that fraud is a crime and is also a civil law violation. Defrauding people of money is presumably the most common type of fraud that is out there, but just keep in mind there is also other type of fraud like in art, archaeology, or science.
Well, we've had far too many examples of fraud in recent days and decades even. Here's a few listed. Everybody's heard of Enron, Tyco. They were having parties. The CEO of that company was giving himself loans, and it was just crazy. It was out of control. Recently, we've learned that the SEC really didn't do a very good job, even when they were tipped off. So the environment is very discouraging, seeing that fraud has gone undetected, and it's also we've gone unprotected by the vehicles and systems that we've set up to prevent it.
Why is it committed? We'll start off with a quote from Carrie Francaise from Deloitte & Touche. She states, "While fraud is committed during strong economic times, it is clearly exacerbated in a declining market. Due to the current economic conditions, there is increasing pressure to meet Wall Street expectations. These measures create an illusion that a firm is more healthy and prosperous than it actually is, just so that these firms can get more cash and liquidity to use in business."
And in November of 2008, Deloitte & Touche released the findings from a study that they did where they looked at fraud and bankruptcy. What they found was that fraud incidences are more likely to land a company in bankruptcy court, and that bankrupt companies are 3 times as likely to be cited for fraud when compared to companies that are not bankrupt. Many companies, as just stated before, that are dealing with adverse performance issues tend to commit fraud to cover up what's really going on to make themselves look better. Companies that are cited for fraud are twice as likely to file for bankruptcy than those that are not cited for fraud. The study also looked at the types of fraud that are commonly committed, and the most common one in this study was improper revenue recognition.
So our class reading on fraud indicated that a dollar spent on fraud prevention goes a lot farther than a dollar spent on fraud detection, and that's because making an example of severe consequences faced by fraud perpetrators goes a long way in preventing future frauds from occurring. On the other hand, if you go about trying to find a fraud that's occurred, you're going to have to go pour through all the financial data the company accumulates over the years, and you can imagine how much manpower, man-hours you have to expend to just go find the fraud in that. And on top of that, the half the things you think you're fraud that you found happen to be just mere human errors in putting the data, or just coincidences that the numbers look funny.
What I really wanted to get across is that fraud is very diverse in nature, and that it doesn't necessarily fit the stereotype that we have of the greedy CEO, the greedy CFO changing the numbers to put some money in his bank account. It takes plays between a number of parties, and it could be an employee portraying fraud on a company. It could be the company doing fraud on the employee, or a company on a supplier, a company and a customer. And I was going to give you an example about Enron in 1997 when they started forcing power outages in California to create shortages of energy so that the price of electricity would skyrocket and they would make a profit.
So now that we've heard from everybody on fraud, prevention, and correction, we in Group 2 can say that we prefer prevention. It's far more fair, and it's a lot less costly than correction. And so we want to have a little bit of fun with our conclusion. When it comes down to it, it's really about an emotional, ethical pitch. I want to draw on some of our history, some of the great people in our history, maybe even sing a song. So I've got campaign memories from 2004 I'd like to share with you from George Bush. I know about death. The other day I was with a woman, her son died in Iraq. We held hands, said some prayers, shed a tear. Hey, war is hard work, okay? Is our children learning? What are you going to tell the troops? Wrong war, wrong time? Some people think I have a swagger. Let me tell you something. In Texas, we call it walking. I leave Washington with the same values I came in with. And I don't have any trouble looking in the mirror at night. Here's a U2 song to capture the era. So they say this is the golden age. Gold is the reasons for the wars we wage. Fraud and corruption's been happening and happening both night and day. Yes, we can change. Inauguration Day. Now for a little change.
You have to wear that
Probably.
the whole class.
I should have said feel free to sing along. That was YouTube New Year's Day. And I'll bet you know who I'm doing next, right? John McCain. My friends, people are angry. That one over there wants to spread the wealth all around. We can't let him do that.
The truth isn't as good unless it's told. If now isn't a good time for the truth, I don't know when we'll get to it.
Nikki Giovanni, by the way. Thank you. Red. Yellow, black, or white doesn't matter. Everybody is somebody. Keep hope alive. We all know who said that. We also know that good people make bad choices. And that's the danger. And our management classes teach us that people can become vigilantes for justice when faced with injustice, but that can create more injustice. So we have to be careful. So it's the injustice we have to stop by doing the right things, so that we all start doing the right things. And Martin Luther King said also, the time is always right to do the right thing. And injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And without justice, what? There can't be any peace. Well, if we take that seriously, that Martin Luther King said there can't be any peace without justice, then isn't fraud prevention about the survival of the entire human race? Fraud and corruption is not the America that I love. It's not MLK's. It's not JC's. Peanuts, anyone? Not RFK's, not JFK's, not Abraham Lincoln's America. We really have to stand up now and make a change, a serious change. So we vote. We vote all the time. We vote at the polls. We vote at work. We vote with an outstretched helping hand. Brother, can you spare some soap?
No.
We vote for all the people of the world, especially the barefooted and starving nations, to be free from fraud and corruption. And you can feel free to sing along with me on this one if you'd like. Rock of Ages, truth divine, stop corruption, fraud, and crime. Oh, yes. Iho Tunkashila, Wakantanka, Umshimaye, Yaye. Wakanyi Buyelo, Umshimaye. Free Leonard Peltier. 33 years in jail for a crime he didn't commit. If the witnesses and evidence were illegit, then they should have acquit. 33 years! Pardon me, I think 33 years is long enough to demand a presidential pardon. Any questions?